Hello. In this short video, I want to look at what shipped in the 2.2.0 release of the Chocolatey license extension. Let's go ahead and jump in. So the release notes are all up on docs.chocolatey.org. So I'd encourage you to go and read through those if you haven't had a chance to so far. The first thing I want to call out is that the dependencies of the Chocolatey extension, so the Chocolatey license extension package, have been changed in this release, and they've been changed to take a dependency of Chocolatey as a minimum 0.11.0. Now, strictly speaking, that's valid. That is the dependency that exists on the 2.2.0 release of Chocolatey license extension. However, if you've watched some of the other release videos, there's a known problem with the 0.11.0 release of Chocolatey, and it has now actually been unlisted on both Chocolatey community repository and on the license feed. So the actual recommended version as a minimum is 0.11.1, and that will be updated in future versions of Chocolatey license extension. But for now, strictly speaking, that is the dependency, 0.11.0, but we would encourage you to, as a minimum, have 0.11.1 of Chocolatey installed. So let's jump in. So the first thing I want to talk about is that there was a couple of fixes that went into the background mode or self-service. So the first one is that the chocopin command doesn't work when running through Chocolatey agent. So what this is referring to is the chocopin command. So I can run chocopin add -- name as an example Chocolatey. So if I wanted to pin the Chocolatey package, then I can absolutely do that. And then the same way that I can do chocopin remove. So the placement of the pin means that if I were to do a Choco upgrade all, that package wouldn't be upgraded. Now, what would happen is that if you went into the chocolatey.config file when you've got a machine set up in background mode and you added the pin command to a command that's allowed to be executed via the background agent, it wouldn't work. So we identified what the problem was there. So if you were in that situation, then that pin command can now be used through the background agent, but it wasn't before. Prevent invalid configuration value for command execution timeout. Now, there was an edge case when setting via the chococonfig command. So if you were to run chococonfig set -- name and then that command execution timeout, then there was a bit of an edge case where it wouldn't set it properly. That it would set it to there would be a max integer overflow value exception being thrown because it was set to be too high. So we have corrected that issue so that you can no longer get into that situation anymore. The next fix was regarding package builder UI. So if I were to go in here, for example, and go into my program data folder just to find an exe that I can play with, if I were to right click on this exe and bring up the package builder UI, then if you went through this process and you put in some silent arguments here, then what would happen is that when you attempted to generate it, it wouldn't have added a space into the command that's being executed, so it would actually error out. So this was a fix to ensure that there is a space at the beginning, so it gets correctly appended onto the complete operation that's being executed and it works correctly. Proxy bypass ignored on license extension when downloading packages. So essentially the proxy bypass settings, which you can set in the chocolatey.config file, weren't being respected when it was downloading packages. So we put a fix in there to ensure that that works as expected. Now, in terms of improvements, the main one here, and this is across all of the Chocolatey products that have shipped in recent times, we've uplifted all of the Chocolatey products to use the latest version of Log4net because it had a CVE vulnerability identified with it. So we started with Chocolatey, we went through Chocolatey license extension, we've done Chocolatey agent, etc., etc. All of the Chocolatey products have now been uplifted to use the latest version of Log4net. So there's more details in the linked issue if you wanted to read more about that. Self-service background mode, filter sources to only those allowed when running as a non-administrator. So what this is really talking about is that if I'm running it as an administrator, I can do Choco source list, and it will list out all of the available sources that I have on my system. Now, I've added some kind of test sources here with different settings applied. So whether they're admin only, whether they're self-service, whether they're disabled, etc. Now, when I'm an admin on the machine, I probably want to have all of these sources available to me because I, as administrator, will most likely know what all of these sources are for, when I should use them, how I should use them, etc. But if you're running in self-service or background mode, you've maybe got a non-technical user of your machine, and you only want them to see the sources that they can actually use. So I've got another PowerShell session over here where I am running as a non-admin user. So if I run Choco source list here, what I'll see is a much smaller list of sources because I'm actually running on a system that has background service mode enabled. So as a non-administrator user, I've only got access to two sources, the ones that are explicitly marked as self-service. Now, one of these is disabled, so I still can't currently use that, but that can actually be reflected better in Chocolatey GUI. So normally when you've got self-service mode being used, we're encouraging folks, and folks want to use the Chocolatey GUI version of the application. So what we'll see here is that the only source that I've now got available to me as a non-administrator user with self-service mode activated, I've only got that one source available to me. That's the only place I can install packages from. So it's a sort of a quality of life improvement in terms of what the end user sees. So rather than showing them sources that they can't install from, let's only show them the ones that they can install from. Now, I don't have any packages in the source, that's why it's coming up with no packages. But that's the improvement that went into this version of Chocolatey license extension. The other one is regarding to package reducer. So this is really as a package maintainer, you've got a little bit more control over how package reducer works. Chocolatey has this concept across a lot of different functionality to allow a maintainer to take actions based on the addition of files into the package. So what I mean by that is if you, as an example, didn't want Chocolatey to create a shim for a specific exe, you can add a shim file to prevent the creation of that. Now, in the same way, if you don't want package reducer to remove files as part of the cleanup process that package reducer does, then as a maintainer, you can have direct control over controlling exactly which packages are and are not allowed to be cleaned up. So it's, as an end user of Chocolatey, it's not an important feature, but as a package maintainer, it can be the difference between a package installing correctly and a package not installing correctly. So it's a nice addition for those package maintainers that need that functionality. And that, as they say, is that. So if you've got any questions about any of the features or bug fixes that went into this release, feel free to reach out. If not, thank you very much for listening.